Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Be Quran podcast. I am Ali.
And I'm Fatima. And today we're diving into something really rich and reflective.
Yeah, this episode is all about how scholars have approached understanding the attributes of Allah, His names, His qualities, and how they've been classified.
We're looking at two powerful frameworks that help us go beyond just memorizing names into actually grasping their meaning and spiritual depth.
Whether you've heard of Jamal and Jalal or Dhat and Fil, we're going to break them down clearly and show how they shape our understanding of Allah and our connection to Him.
Because knowing who we worship is the heart of worship itself. So let's get into it. Bismillah.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're really getting into something profound, trying to understand the attributes of Allah, specifically through the lenses of al-Jamal and al-Jalal, as well as Sifat, Dhat, and Sifat al-Fi'l. These aren't just academic concepts, there's real spiritual depth here.
Exactly. The scholars didn't create these classifications just to fill books. They genuinely help us structure how we think about Allah's characteristics. It's about making the divine more comprehensible, more approachable in our hearts and minds.
And the source material we studied really makes that clear. Understanding Allah's attributes isn't just trivia. It's crucial for belief, for worship. It's about truly connecting with our Creator.
Yes, that was one of the biggest takeaways for me. Worship without knowing who you're worshiping, it lacks something. It's like being deeply drawn to someone, but not knowing their essence. These frameworks give us a path to that deeper connection.
Right. But let's be real. Thinking about God's attributes can feel overwhelming at first.
Definitely. There are so many, and they're infinite in depth.
But the sources offer us some surprisingly straightforward ways scholars have grouped them. These frameworks help focus our thoughts.
The first major system we looked at is based on whether an attribute affirms God's perfection or negates imperfection. That's where Sifat al-Jamal and Sifat al-Jalal come in.
Sifat al-Jamal, attributes of beauty.
Yes, Sifat means attributes, and Jamal means beauty. These are attributes that affirm Allah's completeness and perfection, qualities like knowledge, ilm, and power, qudra. His knowledge isn't partial, and his power isn't limited. There is no gap, no flaw.
And that's why this category is sometimes also called Sifat al-Kamal, attributes of perfection. Jamal shows us what God is. Complete, beautiful, perfect.
The flip side is Sifat al-Jalal, the attributes of glory or majesty. These don't affirm what God is so much as negate what He is not. They negate weakness, limitation, imperfection.
So Jalal is about removing any idea that God could resemble creation. Things like being physical, having parts, being seen the way we see things.
Right, like Surah al-Ikhlas, say He is Allah, one. The Ahad implies indivisibility, no parts, not born, nor does He give birth, lam yalid wa lam yulad. These are Jalal because they strip away any human-like flaws.
So Jamal tells us what God is, and Jalal tells us what God is not. Together, they help us understand both Allah's nearness and His absolute transcendence.
That duality really helps ground our understanding, but that's just one way of classifying His attributes. There's another system we looked at too.
Yeah. The second classification shifts focus to Sifat al-Dhat and Sifat al-Fi'l. The first one, Sifat al-Dhat, means attributes of essence.
Attributes that are inseparable from who God is. They're eternal, unchanging, and independent of creation. God doesn't become knowing or start living. He simply is.
Examples from the source include knowledge, power, life. These are not choices, they're core to His nature.
Then there's Sifat al-Fi'l, attributes of action. These relate to God's will, his choices, his interactions with creation, things like creating, al-Khaliq, providing, ir-Raziq, and willing, irada.
So, whereas essence is always present, fi'l shows God's agency, his choosing to act, to create, to sustain.
One interesting debate the source highlighted was about irada, or will. Some scholars see it as part of God's essence, eternal like knowledge, but many theologians, especially within the teachings of Ahlul Bayt, classify it as an attribute of action.
Because it's about God choosing, willing something specific to happen at a specific time. That suggests change and engagement rather than timeless constancy.
Exactly. So classifying attributes helps us appreciate the nuances. It's not just about putting things in boxes. It's about how we see God's relationship with creation.
Let me recap the second framework. Sifat al-Dhat, essential, always present attributes like life, knowledge, power. Sifat al-Fi'l, attributes exercised through God's will, like creating, sustaining, willing.
Beautiful summary. And like we said, these systems aren't competing. They're lenses. Take knowledge. It's both a Jamal attribute, because it affirms perfection, and a Dhat attribute, because it's core to God's being.
It's incredible how scholars develop these frameworks to bring us closer to understanding the infinite.
And how it helps us not only think about God, but feel more connected in worship and reflection.
So, here's a thought to leave with our listeners. When we reflect on the difference between attributes of essence and attributes of action, what does that say about Allah's relationship with the universe, with time itself?
Something to ponder deeply. His essence is timeless, but his actions are within time, within our lives. That's profound.
That's all the time we have for today's deep dive into the divine attributes. Thanks so much for tuning in.
Until next time, stay curious, stay grounded, and keep seeking that deeper understanding of our Creator.